Hey, welcome to the Redeye stream. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the Teddy Roosevelt statue. We're also going to talk about another shooting on the police and whatever else pops up. Tomorrow I do have an interview with somebody who wrote a book about men's rights. It'll be at about 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Come check that out. Maybe you like what he says and you donate to help him get his book edited and published. He's not looking for a lot. It's only $2,000 he's trying to crowdfund on Indiegogo, so it's not bad. How's everybody doing tonight? MC, I know you talked a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt this morning, but who watches that shit anyway? It's on at like 5 a.m.
It is on at 6 a.m. Thank you.
And obviously I watched it if I didn't know what you talked about. But still, that's besides the point.
So we're talking about the statues, and they're going after Teddy Roosevelt now. Hang on,
just real quick. Go ahead. In an alternate universe, Teddy Roosevelt in a gay society would have stated it was a prance mentally and carry a giant double ender.
Okay, I didn't understand any of that, to be honest.
And walk softly but carry a big stick. If he was in a gay society in an alternate universe, it'd be prance softly and carry a giant double ender.
Oh,
okay.
Fucking pay attention, fuck yous.
That all blended together. Like, did he switch into pygmy? What's going on?
Yeah, the thing is they were. This is all blending into the same thing. If it's a statue, they're trying to destroy it. All right. If it's a statue, especially if it's of an American president, they're out to get it. Okay, they're out to destroy it. They're talking already how like AOC said that she's open to putting more faces on Mount Rushmore. Right. The problem, of course, is that there's no there's no granite left to actually put any of the things on there. So, but with Teddy Roosevelt, it was in New York. It was at the Natural History Museum in New York. All right, this is a museum that was basically founded by Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was, all right, the one who came up with the whole movement for conservation. He's the one who created the first national parks, right, to prevent them from being spoiled. Right, all that came about under his watch as president of the United States. And the statue, what upset them about the statue was, of course, that it's Teddy Roosevelt, and obviously an imperialist, and also the fact that at the Natural History Museum, you have his statue with him sitting on a horse, and then standing on one side is a black man, and on the other side is a Native American. So that's what they're trying to do now.
Okay, wait though. I want to go back to your statement that AOC wants another face on Mount Rushmore, but there's not room. If they go near Washington, you're gonna see a whole different group of people rioting.
You've already had them. They've already been tearing down statues of Washington.
Yeah, but that's not Mount fucking Rushmore.
Well, not Mount Rushmore, but they're talking like it. There are plenty of people who make threats about it. This nonsense is out of control. Yesterday, their big issue was they were going to go after Andrew Jackson, the Andrew Jackson Monument, and they got stopped. Right. So it's not going to end. People who think that you're just going to stop them and then things will cool down and simmer down. It's not going to simmer down. This crap isn't going to end. Anybody who thinks that this crap is going to end is just fooling themselves. These leftists are not going to stop.
And hi, memes. Links out there if you want to jump in. It's been a while since you've been on the Redeye, and I would like to kind of hear your thoughts on the statue removals, because we're not talking about Confederate statues anymore, people. We're talking about Washington monuments, Jefferson, Teddy fucking Roosevelt. That's the modern era, practically.
I don't know if you'd call it the modern.
It's
era.
the turning point where
It's the turn of the century. I mean, the United States is still not what it was, but you can sit there and definitely, if they were going to try and make a case of it, you can definitely say that he's the one who also did the Panama Canal.
It's the industrial age.
Yeah, it is the industrial age, but Teddy Roosevelt is an icon, all right, for the left as well, because he was considered a progressive. He's the one who was at the trust buster, although he never really busted anybody. All right. I mean, the only company he ever really went after for with any kind of real intestinal fortitude was Standard Oil, and that's just because he hated Rockefeller.
Well, no, and that's a good point, though. So the left ignores people like Woodrow Wilson and their extreme racism because they were a Democrat. But even somebody they hold up as a progressive, didn't he run as a Republican, right? So technically he was a Republican. They can't hold him up, even though he agreed with them really on quite a few issues.
Well, I mean, he broke a number of different, Teddy Roosevelt was a unique caricature of American history, right? He was an avid hunter, all right? He was basically a physical fitness guy, right? Unfortunately, his physical fitness and his view of physical fitness included boxing, even when he was in the president of the United States, and actually, while he was president of the United States, in one of his boxing matches with one of his opponents, who happened to be a service member, he got knocked down and he lost. And the guy blinded him in one eye.
Is it me or does Woodrow Wilson fucking? Well, not Woodrow Wilson. Fucking Roosevelt look a bit like Jamie Hyneman from fucking Mythbusters.
A bit. That's a bit.
Roosevelt wants a big boom.
But Roosevelt was, I mean, none of this has been about Black Lives Matter, right? It's all about Marxism. It's all about hating the country. It's about destroying the country. That's what it's always been about. It hasn't changed. And it's gonna. The longer you placate this, the longer you just let it continue, just let it boil and fester, the worse it's going to become.
Just real quick, addressing the chat, Captain Colpile. Welcome. National Park Service is all Teddy, and Moondog, the Marxist, torn down statues of George Washington, and now they're going after statues of Jesus.
Yeah, that was Malcolm X, who said we need to start taking down churches and Jesus next.
Why don't you start with the mosques? I mean, fuck's sake.
Well,
That's
no.
part of the intersectional base, though.
Here's the thing, though. You remember about 2 years ago, MC, when we were having these back and forth conversations? I mean, I don't think you were ever in one, but you saw it with that one gentleman who was the black separatist. You remember even Ogre was talking to him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense guy. These people have been trying to segregate for years now, and now it's becoming mainstream. Why is it do they want to undo everything those before them did? I mean, doesn't that go completely against Martin Luther King Jr.?
Martin Luther King Jr. Go ahead, sorry.
It is kind of funny when you do see demographics around the world, particularly with black people in general, that there's a lot of former Commonwealth countries in Africa who have gone their own separate ways, and they've tried to make it on their own, and they've realised, actually, we can't. We're actually better under administration. And You got places like Sierra Leone are actually actively asking to go back into the Commonwealth. And it's a similar situation here where all these people thought, oh, well, this is our version of utopia, all acceptance and all this kind of stuff. And then they figured, well, actually, we don't really like these people. We've got our own ways and they've got their own ways. And, well, we'd rather go back to segregation now.
Well, they're Marxists. They think that there's a utopian cloud at the end of the, a utopian rainbow at the end of the cloud. Right? That's where they think they're all going to go. And they all think that they're going to be the ones in charge. So they keep pushing and they keep pushing and they keep pushing, and they're destroying the nation more and more and more. And the nation's more at the breaking point than people realize. And when that balloon snaps, it's going to be horrific. I'm not like people like Tim Pool who think that this is just going to be a minor little kerfuffle. I don't think it's going to turn out that way.
Actually, he hasn't really been talking like he thinks it's going to be a minor thing. He's been talking about a civil war.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He thinks it's going to be a civil war like Egypt, right? Where civil unrest. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be real freaking bloody.
And what do you think is the writing on the wall? If you were looking at this situation in another Western style country, so let's say Italy, same situations are going on. Put yourself into an observer position.
Well, we're not. The United States is not other nations.
Okay, fine. Well, then observe your own nation. Then why exactly does there have to be a civil war, and where will the battle lines?
Because there's going to be a civil war because the society is fracturing.
There's too many differing opinions, and no one wants to agree. Too many people want their opinion to be the prevalent one.
No, it's deeper than that. The entire society is fracturing. Okay, it isn't just when you're hearing about this stuff, and this is something I've been trying to get people to understand. There is no commonality anymore between virtues. All right, a virtue to people on the left, all right, and to these Marxists is intersectionality. All right, it's saying that you're part of the progressive mean. All right, they don't care whether or not you're an honest person. They don't care whether or not you care about your neighbor or not. As long as you spout the party line, that's fully acceptable to them. All right, over someone that disagrees with them politically. All right, but won't lie to them. Honesty, integrity, those are all out the window on the left. And I don't care what people think or tell me about, no, Lindsay. Will you show me the ones on the left that care about integrity and put it up as a high priority? Because they don't. It's easy enough to see. You can see it, all right, in the social media accounts. You do not see leftists, all right, calling out other leftists for the absolute horrendous lying and facts of shit that's been going on.
Well, no, and not to be all Tim the Toolman Taylor about it, but last night I'm sitting here just playing a game, and my wife's like, yeah, Trump wants to ban burning the American flag. I'm like, yeah, I watched the rally. He said, 1 year. I think it's freedom of speech. I don't condone it, but I don't think anybody should get arrested. My wife thinks people should be arrested for a year for burning the flag.
Well, I think
you and her have that conversation. That's perfectly fine.
If you don't think that it's an attempt at incitement, then what is it?
I believe that it is. The Supreme Court has ruled on it as well, that it is freedom of speech. I don't
care what the Supreme Court has ruled. Okay? The Supreme Court has made a number of different nonsensical rulings, including this latest nonsense, all right, that they've spewed out. Where, okay, we're the ones that are going to sit up there and decide whether or not we're going to review executive orders and determine whether or not an executive order meets our standard. Okay? The culture is gone. We no longer have rule of law in the country anymore.
Well, what I was trying to point out is you have people that aren't really actively political. She had never voted until me and her got together. Who are now like, wait a minute, you shouldn't be burning the American flag. What are you doing with our statues? What the hell is this bullshit? They could riot, but I have to wear a mask in public. That doesn't make any sense. They're shoving people that aren't political into the political arena.
Well, there's people that should have been political all along, because that was the point of the American experience, is that you're supposed to pay attention to who your representatives are, which is my problem with the Supreme Court.
Hell, in his first fucking term, right, just as a joke, I was driving around with a little piece of paper I cut out, made a bodgy sticker out of it, had a picture of George W.'s face and a caption on it saying, "Maybe you'll vote next time, won't you, hippie?"
Okay.
So it wasn't funny then.
Considering the situation as it exists right now, do you really think that's humorous?
Well, you got to admit, like, the large majority of people who are sooking about who's in power at the moment don't, in fact, vote in the first place, anyways.
Well, that's true. That's a good part of the problem, though.
Well, that was the major crux of the joke. Is all like, you want to sit there and talk about W? Well, why didn't you vote, you dumb shit? I mean, not so much why didn't you vote for the other person. It's like, why didn't you vote to begin with?
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that are not political in America, that play the pox on both houses games.
But this is only going to get worse, and
it does.
Yeah, but it has a lot to do with the internet and all this kind of stuff, and it does come back to, like, conspiracy theories and fucking fake news and all this kind of stuff.
Well,
and I reckon the internet's the worst possible invention I reckon humanity ever made, because it's allowed too many people with too many retarded opinions to have too much of a voice box.
No, I don't think that's the problem. The problem is that there's too many people in social media, right, that don't know that know things that aren't so. They don't, and they're too lazy to find out. All right, you've got all these statues burning right now, or we're going to tear down all these statues because we're upset about slavery. We're going to go after Grant's statue because he was given a slave in a will that he freed almost a year later, after he realized that that after he had this thing, because he hated the whole institution of slavery. But we're going to rip down his statue because it was a slavery. Yet, out there in Connecticut is an entire university named Yale. Yale was one of the biggest slave traders in America. And yet I don't see anybody going into Connecticut and burning the university down to the ground. Do you?
Don't start making sense. You'll just confuse them, MC.
Well, no, and they can't even police their own, all right? Like, check it out. The world goes to hell, and I'm stuck in a camp out in the woods trying to survive. I'm going to take people with me I can trust, a small group. They storm an area. No, even the Bundys at the National Wildlife Refuge here in Oregon took their militia group. They took people they can trust. They didn't have to worry about someone rolling up and shooting them. Look at this autonomous zone, or whatever the hell they're calling it today. How many people have been shot? I count at least 2 so far. Where people roll up, shoot somebody, and leave.
I can't wait until they start getting really technical and learn how to drop improvised explosives from little drones and shit like that, bomb them from the air. That'd be fucking funny.
No, see, the thing is, Farty, this isn't the Civil War playing out. What this is there's a drug dealer in there because there's no cops. And there's a bunch of people that probably do drugs. And then there's a competitor drug dealer that's like, oh, there's no cops. I've hated this motherfucker for years. I mean, come on, it's Seattle. What do you think it is? It's the heroin trade, man.
Yeah, but also, too, they're stuck in there with all these hippie fucking free love motherfuckers and bloody Antifa cunts, and they're all fucking soy boy bastards. And we were talking about this on Exiled Opinions, where they'd storm the police station and they got into the evidence locker, and it'd be like, yeah, that'd be the worst fucking party to be at, eh? It'd be like, here, do you want some cocaine? They're like, oh no, I can't. Oh, I got allergies. All right, what about some crystal meth? Oh no, I've heard that stuff's really bad for you. Or what about some fucking weed then? Oh, I can't. I got asthma. Oh, that'd be what it's like stuck with those bastards. So that drug dealer, he'd be like, wrong crowd, making no friggin' business.
And Moondog, I'll get a hold of you either Discord or maybe I'll write you on the PlayStation Network about Friday. I don't know if it'll be the exact same topic, but this seems to be reoccurring lately. And now you have the left. And by the left, I mean the media. I mean the ones who are saying there's not really a problem, everything's fine, nothing to see here. Oh, and by the way, President Trump said he's lying about the numbers on CVID. Did you hear this bullshit?
Well, they're going on and saying that it's just like the latest kerfuffle today, right? Trump says, all right, they asked him, did you joke about this? He says, I never joke, right? When he said that we need to stop testing, right? Did you joke about that? I never joke. Now, let's be honest. Do you think Trump was being serious when he said that, or do you think he's just pulling their chain that much more?
Fucking jokes all the time.
Exactly. And yet they cannot see him in anything other than a 2D mustache twirling villain.
Hell, he used it as a defense, 2 weeks ago? And he's saying, oh, yeah, injecting the friggin' disinfectant. And he's like, yeah, and the next day he's like, I was joking, you see what you do, you stupid bastards.
They don't know. And the thing is, though, on the joking part, before we move too far past it. So I've been going to my Facebook a little bit here and there. And he actually is an old friend of mine, one of my oldest friends. He wants to come on the show sometime to discuss, the Black Lives Matter thing and pretty much what we're discussing right now. My other friend had wrote or shared that article talking about the president skewing numbers. He admitted to lying and it's a crime. And I watched that 2-hour rally because I have to. So I know when I talk about it, I saw it. You know what I mean? Like moments like right now. Mm-hmm. That's not what he meant. Did you even watch the lead up to it? He was joking. He just got done joking about a ramp and a glass of water. I mean, what do you want here? He's trying to be lighthearted in the mix of all this chaos, which I think was the wrong move. We'll talk about that here soon. And then my buddy, who is, the one that might come on the show. Hey, Chris, I don't think the president should joke about these things. Do you? Maybe not, but the rest of us are. So then again, why not? I don't know. What's the answer to that?
Well, he wasn't elected because of that. Everyone knows what kind of a person that he is. If you're looking for someone who's going to be, serious and contemplative and so forth, that's out the window. Right? People knew that they weren't, when they elected Trump, that's not who you're going to get. You're not going to get a soft-spoken man. You're going to get the Andrew Jackson of our day. That's who he is.
Yeah, but he's not ending the bank. You are a den of vipers, and I will root you out.
How can he do that?
How did freaking Andrew Johnson do it?
Well, Andrew Jackson had support in the Congress.
Not very much. He had
a hell of a lot of support in Congress. And the bank he was killing fell strictly within the purview of the executive branch. Right now, you have a Congress and a judiciary that is telling the executive, no matter what you do, we're going to override you, regardless of whether or not we're supposed to have the power to do it or not.
That's fair. I would start with what Ron Paul said, audit the Fed, and then go through the measures to end the Fed. But that's not really what we're here to talk about.
But how did the Fed get created?
It got created by the House and the Senate.
All right, it got created by legislation. Trump can't end something, all right, by fiat that was done by legislation.
I know, which comes back to the Constitutional Convention. I know. I gotcha. But what do I say to people who are like, I know these guys. I don't think they're closed-minded. I don't think they're so out there that it's just they hate Trump no matter what. But I think they're being fed this from the media, and that's their only outlook, is what the media is force-feeding them.
And
how can we fight that?
How can you call them, how can you say that they're not closed-minded?
Well, one, I know he was a small business owner. He probably lost that and is probably working somewhere else now. But, like, he's busy. People have lives, MC. I know you have a life too, but we go out of our way to do this. We go out of our way to pretty much do a radio show. And that's just the type of people we are. Not everybody are political junkies like you and I.
Do you know how bad the press is? Do you know how one-sided the media is? Are you telling me they don't?
You got to imagine the way these guys went through the school system. We had Channel 1
getting bullied.
Channel 1 on, and what that was pretty much a school-only news channel, and it was totally skewed left. Everybody in the schooling system has been engineered at this point to tend towards the left.
They're trained to never ask why. They're not open-minded. They're trained to be closed-minded. They even try to ascribe open-mindedness to them when they don't want to listen because they don't want to hear it. You can go. I can show you Twitter after Twitter, right, where African Americans or Black Americans, right, who are think this whole Black Lives Matter crap is harming America and harming them specifically. And all they're trying to do is talk to people on the other side. And the reaction is priceless. The reaction today with that person that charged that one, I'm trying to remember who it was. Not Ida Navarro. One of those highfalutin celebrities, all right, who was at one of those rallies areas in D.C. when all of a sudden one of the protesters ran toward her, right, and of course her little security guard grabbed the person. Her first comment out of her mouth was, "Where's the cops?" Here she is supporting this whole movement to destroy the cops and everything else, and yet the first thing that happens when something begins to happen, well, who's there to guarantee my safety? That's who you're dealing with. And they look at that completely unironically, and the people around them, the ones that you say are open-minded individuals, witness that, okay? And it makes no impact whatsoever on their thinking or their thought processes. You cannot look, for example, all right, at what Trump has had to go through with this entire fiasco of Russia collusion, and the realization that it was an entire thing it was a fake, and if it was a fake, how was it perpetrated? What the import of that actually means. Think about that. Think about what the federal government, all right, along with the previous administrations were doing under false auspices, and they don't even think about that. It doesn't even occur to them how out of control the federal government is. Trump's bad. Trump's bad. Do you realize what this means? Do you realize the import of this? Do you realize what has happened here? You have a case right now where they're all after Bill Barr, right? And they all are going after Bill Barr because of this guy Berman and this thing with Roger Stone and Zelensky. Zelensky's going to be testifying tomorrow.
MC. Go ahead and continue. Go ahead and continue in a second. But if I was President Trump, I would walk out right now. Right now. Screw it. I would walk out with a piece of paper in my hand. It would be Roger Stone's pardon. I would walk out, have a 30-second press conference. I hereby pardon Mr. Stone. Hand the papers off to whoever you have to hand them off to, and I'm out. That's it. They would lose their shit, and then they would talk about that forever, why he can make whatever moves he wants.
Right, and how will your friend go? How would your friend do that?
What do you mean? Roger Stone would be happy to be pardoned, wouldn't he?
I didn't say that. I'm talking about your friend, the friend you were talking about.
Oh, he would probably freak out, say that's an overreach, even though Obama pardoned a known spy. But let's not mention that.
Exactly.
I can't remember the spy's name, but I was watching this channel I like. As a Key Turns, he's a ex-prison guard at USP Marion. Back when they were Supermax, all the way to when they transferred over to a different type of unit. But he actually guarded this guy in, not general pop, but they put all the high risk people in segregation. Yeah, I forgot that word all of a sudden.
Well, Bobby B is exactly right. They're programmed intentionally to not think. You say that they have an open mind. They don't have an open mind. Why do you think memes isn't on here right now? Now maybe memes has other things going on, but I have a feeling that the reason memes isn't on is more to do with me. Because I've been hammering poor memes.
Oh, I don't know. I just the thing is, I would love to see him walk out and pardon Roger Stone. I don't believe Roger Stone did anything wrong. Do you really? Do you really believe he did something worth going to prison over?
No, he didn't do anything worth going to prison over. Did he do something wrong? I think that the initial charges against him were ridiculous, but when the judge tells you not to do something, you got, and you do it anyway, you're going to get your pee-pee whacked. All right, I don't care who you are.
Just real quick, just to address the chat too. It's like, hey Dade, hey Manny Ray of Hope, and hey Bobby Lee. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Okay,
no.
continue.
Memes made a video earlier. Yeah, well, Memes' videos lately have been really, really, I don't know, not to my liking.
Why aren't they to your liking?
I suppose for the same reason why I was arguing with my old real life friends on Facebook. Because I don't think they're seeing the whole picture. I don't think Memes is either.
Okay.
Does Memes ever see the whole picture?
Memes is who Memes has always been. Nothing's changed.
I know.
Okay. So
I'm the one that my political compass is moving. And I already can tell it's moving. And it's not even my fault. I think the political spectrum itself is shifting and making me more right.
How is the political side shifted at all?
They're moving the Overton window. They're getting more and more outrageous every flipping day. And to say that a protest is a riot and a riot is a protest and the spike has nothing to do with them. Oh, and by the way, a county in Oregon is saying that if you're a person of color, quote unquote, you don't have to wear the mask if you fear profiling. Okay. This is so
This
the
they've always been.
so COVID does not affect you based on your race. Is that what you're fucking telling me right now? This is what's got me about ready to fucking explode. It's ridiculous. You're the racist sons of bitches, not me.
Okay, but this is nothing new.
What's new is I'm getting older and I'm getting fucking pissed. I see what you're fucking doing.
Well, why couldn't you see this when you're in your 20s?
I don't know.
He was young, dumb, full of cum.
Yeah, I was busy.
That's how you got so many bloody kids.
None of this should surprise you. None of this that's going on right now should surprise anyone. This is who they've always been. This is what they've always been going toward. And every time they tell you, no, we're only going to go this far. This is what we mean. All you have to do is look what they do 5 years after they make that comment and they get their way. It's been this way for since you've been alive, man. How could you not have seen it?
Well, I'm not saying no to you. We'll revisit that, but Dade, no, the China flu, the Kung flu, COVID, the pandemic, the plandemic, the fucking Batman fucked Superwoman and gave you super AIDS flu, has a 98 or 97.1% survival rate. This is not the Spanish flu, people. This is not the Black fucking Death. This is not the plague. This is not any of that.
A lot of this is, all right, first of all, our treatment facilities, our ability to handle these things is far superior than what it was before, too. So to say that it's not as deadly, that's just because of the aspect of how much better we are, medically off than anything else. Now, as far as the pandemic being overblown, as far as what we can do about it, the reality is, whether people want to admit this or not, was the whole purpose of doing this social distancing, this whole elbow bump crap that memes could be pushing. All it was there for was to try and slow the spread, all right? Because they were worried that the medical systems would get overwhelmed like they were in places like Italy. Well, this is the United States, and I said it from the very beginning. The United States will not have its medical facilities overwhelmed that way. Our country doesn't exist in that front. We're totally different in many different areas, and we never even came close to anything that was going to overwhelm the system. So, really, what's left? Okay, we've slowed the spread, but the spread is going to continue. And now, with all of the rest of this stuff out the window, right, with this protests and the spikes and all this other stuff that fell right along with it, it's not going to make a difference now. You might as well just deal with the fact that we're going to have to develop human herd immunity now. All right. That's really, we might as well get it done and get it over with now, because anything else isn't going to help in matters. Locking the system down, keeping us locked indoors, coming back with all these quote unquote mitigation strategies is a mitigation strategy for what? For what purpose? For what purpose are you doing this now? It's still going to spread. It's still going to get out there. You might as well deal with the fact that we're going to be dealing with human herd immunity now. You're not going to stop this. It's too far. It's gone too far. Right now, you got Germany. Germany's freaking out. Why? Because they had their little protests, just like they did in France and everywhere else, and it blew all of their ideas of how they were going to control this right on out the window. So people are like, okay, well, since it's already open, why don't we just open everything back up again? Nothing makes any difference now. That's what I've been. That's what I've been saying. Now there are people who keep coming back going, no. We still got a social distance. Oh, we don't want to start shaking hands anymore. We want long live the elbow bump. We want to make sure people have masks. It doesn't matter if you have a mask or not. From a societal perspective, what are we gaining by wearing a mask?
The ability to burn down buildings.
Well,
on another aspect of it, it's like, as you were saying at the beginning of that little rant, and I do recall I did mention this in the World War One, in one of the World War One streams, when we were talking about the Black Death and all this, and the differences between society and the world back then and now, and the same things still apply to what I said back then. Yeah, it was a completely different world. The war had just ended. People were malnourished and all this kind of stuff. Now you've got like a place like America who's got entire National Guard units who are, solely designed to set up field hospitals and stuff like that. And you've got numerous amounts of them too. So like just in that aspect alone, you're just more than well equipped to deal with a major scale national emergency of that kind of a thing. However, prevention is better than a cure, and a lot of things can be relaxed a little bit because, as I was maintaining before when me and you had that argument, Matt, is that like we didn't know enough about it to begin with. And there are a lot of things it was doing differently to a lot of other viruses and things like that we were seeing before. Now we do know a little bit more. Some medications are starting to work, and not that hydroxychloroquine fucking shit. That shit still does not work because it doesn't work that way. But there are a few other treatments that, especially we're looking into, that don't actually cure it, don't actually prevent it, but it helps fight the symptoms and bring down the respiratory ailment side of things, which is the thing that is mainly killing a lot of people, especially with weak respiratory function and things like that. Getting people tested. A lot more people have been tested. A lot more people have seen more accurate signs and symptoms and been able to present themselves earlier and things like that, which have allowed them to be treated in an earlier fashion, which have prevented them getting to the stage of the ventilators and things like that. So we are learning a lot more, and yes, we are finding out that, okay, right, it isn't as dangerous as what we initially thought. But like with a lot of emergencies, there's no harm in dumping a fuck ton of emergency crews and shit like that in there only to find out you only needed half of them. And it's the same thing with ammunition. No cunts ever fucking complain about carrying too much ammo. We overreacted at first. Okay, fine. But wouldn't you rather us overreact and say, oh, fuck, it's nothing, and then wait until half the place is fucked and,
Not. See, this is where I get yelled at. This is where people screech. And I get it. Freedom is scary. I understand. But no. I'd rather take the hazard than have you shackle me, is what they did to our economy, is what they did to every American. That's why they got stir crazy, and that's why they burnt down half the goddamn cities in this country.
Well, I still maintain that a lot of these protests, especially with mobs like Antifa and all this, I mean, anarchy is part of the communist fucking rhetoric and all this kind of shit. And, there's been talk about this for ages where, and even you've been talking about it where, fucking the boog and fucking, bloody your constitution and, gun grabs and things of that nature are going to lead to conflict similar to this. While this is all going on, you create the quarantine. When people are fed up with the quarantine, you give them a poke. You use an incident like, well, let's just wait for an American cop to kill a black fella. That's not going to be something that'll only happen in a blue moon. Oh, look, here we go. All right, people are up in arms. All right, give them a bit of a poke. All right, we'll destabilise the place even more. In the meantime, no cunts watching China.
Yeah. And go ahead, MC. I had my little mini rant. But no, I agree with you, Party.
Well, there's a difference between quarantining people who are sick and then quarantining other people to say, this is to prevent you, just in case you got sick, from sickening other people. That's where we really screwed the pooch on this.
Well, another thing there too, I mean, like, we weren't aware exactly how it was spreading. Like, for a good long time, we weren't sure whether it was, in fact, aerosol, whether it was only from, contact and, spreading from contact and things like that. How long was its longevity outside the human body? How long, like, could you touch a doorknob and then the next day infect somebody else? Things of that nature, and that's another thing where you do sort of need to overreact as well.
Yeah, you're obviously right. Okay, I get it. But there is another part of that. If we weren't so hyper vigilant, our good friend Eldritch helped a lot on the channel. Great guy. I hope he's doing all right. But he had given advice, and his advice was like pretty much sterilize everything. Well, that actually lowers your immune system because you're not fighting anything off. And there is actually good bacteria. So living in a bubble will actually have adverse effects. It doesn't take a doctor to tell you this.
There's an element of truth to that aspect about sterilization and all this kind of stuff. And that's mainly more for when you're young, particularly newborn to toddler, and that's where your immune system is still building. And a lot of the time, you do need the dirt, the germs, the scrapes, the infections, all the other ailments and stuff like that, so your immune system can start building on just things like normal shit you get from a scraped knee or something like that, so it'll just scab over and heal instead of get infected and things like that. So those are the years where you do need to build your immune system, and it is a danger to have such a very sterile environment because you're not subjecting them to the normal germs and things like that. And that's where you can get your
Look at what happened when they did these lockdowns. All right, where the people who ended up in the hospitals over half the time, over 60% of the time, all right, the people that ended up with the most serious symptoms were locked down. Whereas the people that were working, the people that were going in and out, they were less likely, all right, to develop the worst of the symptoms. And the reason for that is because if you're constantly exposed to the disease, eventually it overwhelms you. Whereas if you're exposed to the disease now and then, all right, your body can develop an immunity to it. This is how the human body works. Well, you threw all that out the window when you told everybody to stay at home and put them all on lockdown. This is what happened in New York. This is one of the reasons why the cases in New York were so much more overblown than anywhere else. Now, at the same time, when you've got protests daily, where you have people roaming the streets nightly through New York, do you see a serious spike in the cases in New York? You don't. Now, why is that? It's because they basically gave everybody the friggin' disease, so they're past that herd immunity curve now. Oh, there'll still be people that get infected, but they're past the herd immunity curve. And the reason, and they were estimating that 60% of the people had already been exposed to it by the time they even started the lockdowns. So this whole idea of where they went about this, while it's hindsight, and I agree that it's hindsight. If we don't learn from this, if we don't say, wait a minute here, this was not the way to do this because look at all the other factors here, we're gonna make it worse the next time we have something like this.
Well, I'd kind of rather that we did something a bit more bloody stringent, particularly out here, because for the simple reason that, well, we had some just absolute fucking brain-dead fucking security breaches and shit like that. Like a cruise ship docks in Sydney in the middle of the fucking night at like 2 a.m. They disembarked 2,000 people off a cruise ship that's already got known cases on board. Didn't bother checking anybody, basically told them to go find their own hotels and make their own way home and shit like that. People were traveling for like 2 fucking days on like a packed domestic airliner and all this kind of shit. And they were fucking crook, both of them. They ended up fucking dying, the pair of them, like elderly couple. But, like, you know, we had massive fuck-ups like that. And one would think, like, you know, there'd be at least one person on the friggin' dock that night that'd think, like, well, hang on a minute, maybe we should sort of, like, I don't know, ask a fucking question. Like, that's how retarded people are out here. And then with the protests, and this is where I sort of keep leaning towards the communist conspiracy and all this kind of shit, is that, like, we've just come out of our lockdowns, right? Fucking Queensland's fine, Darwin, like Northern Territory's fine, Western Australia's okay. Adelaide or South Australia, they've got fucking a couple of cases, but they're people who are already in quarantine as they just come off the flight. They go straight into quarantine now. Yeah, New South Wales is free, but fucking Melbourne, like Victoria, they've got fucking they had 16 new cases yesterday alone, and they're supposed to have just had a massive quarantine and shit like that. And now they're fucking just basically exploding, which just tells us a few things. One, the friggin' Victorians can't be trusted to sit on a toilet seat the right way because they obviously weren't observing the quarantine rules properly. Two, a lot of these were as a result of protests and stuff like that, because Victoria is full of fuckwit uni students and things of that nature. They like to go and protest stupid things in sympathy for other uni students around the world. So, of course, guess what they're doing right now? Of course, we've got a Black Lives Matter problem out here, apparently, and it's all Captain Cook's problem. Apparently, because they're ripping his statue down and protesting in Melbourne, and that's where a lot of the spike has come from, all these protesters down there. So I'm pretty sure, since we are still letting in these bloody Chinese students, I mean, fifth columnists, students, that, you know, they've come out here, they're waiting for us to release the lockdowns, and they're just going to start spreading it again. So, yeah, buddy, and as for this Captain Cook bloody beeswax fucking thing, like, this is how bloody stupid retarded these freaking mongoloid bastards are, right? They blame Captain Cook. He only discovered the country for Britain, right? He only sailed past and went, oh, well, okay, put that on the map, you know, fucking bosun's mate. And then he sailed off to Fiji and was promptly killed. And then about 20 years later, a bloke called Captain Arthur Phillip came out with the first fleet and dumped a bunch of convicts and started apparently, air quotes, invading and all this kind of stuff. So he's a bloke, his bloody statue, you should be pulling down. But furthermore, it's Gough Whitlam who completely fucked his country. And he's the bloke whose grave you should be really pissing on, but never mind about that. Let's blame Captain Cook, the bloke who had nothing to do with this.
Well, no, and the thing is, first off, yeah, hindsight is 2020, but yeah, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. Fuck you, I was right. Fuck you, I was right. Fuck you, I was right. I just have to say that because I got laughed at when I said this wasn't as bad as everybody thought. Literally laughed at. So, yeah, I'll take my razor fist moment and spin in my chair and say, fuck you, I was right. Because I was. And second, I do believe, even when you get older, if you shelter yourself from being exposed to different things, bacteria, viruses, whatever. In other words, if you live in a totally sanitary environment, I do believe that would lower your immune system naturally because it wouldn't be fighting anything. The more you're exposed, the more you build up antibodies and the more you adapt to the new viruses. You know, so like, I never get the flu shot. Why? Because it's last year's flu. What's the point? And I caught last year's flu, so I have that virus already figured out. You know, I don't need the vaccine.
What you're sort of more talking about is metabolics and things like that. I mean, like, you know, everything's supposed to run in conjunction with each other. You just can't buy a Total Gym and expect that to turn you into Chuck Norris. You still need the diet to go with it and all this kind of shit. There's the same thing with recluses and people who do lock themselves away and all this kind of stuff. You know, they might live in a fairly clean environment, but, you know, if they shut themselves up and all this, and there's hardly any airflow and all that. There's germs and shit that can breed and cultivate and basically prop up out of nowhere from things like standing water and bugs and stuff bringing things in, standing garbage, decomposing vegetable material and all that kind of stuff. So you can never make a completely sterile environment to that kind of effect. And if it is someone who is effectively shut up from society and stuff like that, logic could kind of dictate that they'd probably sit around watching TV for most of the time, and that eliminates one of the three things that helps have a healthy body and immune system and mental faculties and stuff like that, which is exercise, a good healthy diet, and basically fresh air and cleanliness and things like that. So you'd probably find that there's a fair amount of that aspect in the metabology as well as. Did I just confuse the shit out of everyone?
No.
But why the double standard, MC? Is it to divide us more? That's what it feels like to me. Because they are saying in Oregon, if you are black, you don't need a mask. Whitey, put on your fucking mask. You're going to kill us all.
Either that or they're trying to kill off more blacks. I mean, if you really want to look at
that went dark.
You asked the question, all right, why would you sit up there and tell the white people to put on the mask to try and save themselves and tell the black people, but you don't have to do it? Normally, the normal conclusion of that would be is to say that, well, they want them to take the risk. They don't want white people to take the risk, right?
Well, since it's sorry,
that would be the natural conclusion for the black people to sit up there and look at it. That's how they've been taught to think, right? Right. So is it a form of dividing people? Of course it is. What do you think? Well, I try to explain this to many people who voted for Obama. All right. There were a lot of people. I know a lot of people that voted for Obama because of the color of his skin. And a lot of them voted for him because he was black, so they could say, we're no longer racist. We've gone past race. And race relations will get better. All right?
No.
Warn them immediately that is not what was going to happen, that race relations were going to get worse across the board. And they did.
Yeah, well, like with the masks, though, just repeat, you could see that as since the mask is supposed to protect the wearer from giving the virus to everybody else, it should be seen as a racial slur where the black people are going, put a mask on, you dirty white bastard. Don't give us the cholera blankets or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, no, and the thing is, and I see what you're saying there, Farty, I guess. The thing is, they keep pushing this divide. And it's only America where the divide seems to be so racial. And we know where that is the root of. And no, it's not from slavery. You don't have this type of divide in England or the territories thereof of the former or current Commonwealth. You don't have this because of the way they ended it.
Kinda.
Why?
Depending on where you go, we kind of do. Look, if you Sierra Leone, no. South Africa, yeah. Australia, sort of, kinda. New Zealand, another story there as well. Fiji, different story again. But not so much. There's different variations of tension in the Commonwealth.
What's the demographic makeup of Britain? What's the demographic makeup? Okay.
Just a second, I'll find out for you.
You'll probably find it's inaccurate, and there's a lot of Indians and Muslims there more than there are white Anglo-Saxons nowadays.
No, but that's nowadays, right? If you notice, Great Britain's gotten pretty bad, hasn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Why? Because they're starting to see the strength of large minority communities.
That's more Muslims, and they're doing it the same thing out here. They just buy up lots of areas and shit. Like, they'll buy up one house in a street, and then they'll act like an arsehole. As people move out, they'll move their cousins and stuff. And next thing you know, they're all the whole bloody tribes in a whole fucking community, whole suburb and stuff like that.
Even in Australia, well, what percentage of the population, right, is?
Oh my God! Wait a minute. Okay, white. You have Irish, gypsy or Irish traveler, and other white. Whoa. Mixed and multiple ethnic groups. White and black Caribbean, white and Asian, white and black African, other mixed. Asian and Asian British. Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Chinese, other Asian, and then African, Caribbean, Caribbean and other black. But the demographic was let's see, so 1, 2, 3, about 4% of the United Kingdom demographic would be black. And I combined all the numbers there. That's in 2011. I bet you it's grown from that.
Well, sure, 4%. That's of a black demographic, right? Now, if you compare that to the United States, one of the first things that you're going to run into with the United States is the fact that in our states, you have different demographic breakups. For example, in Nebraska, you're probably dealing close to that 4%. It's a fairly homogenous state, not a lot of population. If you take a look at Alabama, however, that's not going to be the case. It's not going to be the 13%. It's going to be closer to the 20 to 25% range.
Or like Louisiana, where I think it's more like 30 or 25%. Right.
So you have significant areas which have significant minority populations, and we're just looking at one minority population in this case. Okay, versus what I'm talking about isn't minority color-wise. The problem is the minorities culturally. Okay, if you take a look at it from a cultural standpoint, we've got massive minority cultures, all right, throughout the United States. No other country has this kind of thing. That's why we were called a great melting pot, until they decided that the melting pot was the wrong way to go about it, and what we needed to explore and celebrate and push at every opportunity was diversity. And who did that? This whole diversity push does exactly that. It pushes us apart.
I just want to know what an Irish traveler is.
It's a good question. All right.
I'm sorry, that demographic breakup of white, Englishmen was really interesting because they're like Irish, and it's like 35% or whatever, and then Irish traveler / gypsy. So are they saying the Irish are gypsies? Because I didn't think the Irish were gypsies. I'm so confused now.
I don't know the answer, but you're seeing my point. The difference between an Irishman and, let's say, an Italian is quite a bit less, all right, than an Irishman and a Native American, or an Irishman versus a Vietnamese or Chinese or something along those lines. All right, but even then, that's still a significant difference.
Well, okay, so you have what happened with I want to call it a cop on cop shooting, a military policeman out police hunting, and the first cop he came across, or a couple cops, were black, and he
taken advantage of the situation, and he hates cops, and he wants to sit up there and kill them. He's been convinced that cops are just a bunch of brutal thugs. I wonder where they get that impression from.
Is there any more to the story? You said Oakland, right?
Yeah, that was in Oakland. It was a federal office that he attacked. But if you missed today's big news, or late yesterday's, early today's big news, which was a U.S. soldier, right, was indicted for traitor, being a traitor,
Treason.
and he was trying to set up his unit to get attacked, right? And he supposedly was working with this 9 Angels or O9 Angels group, all right, which I'd never heard of before, which is supposed to be this radical neo-Nazi group that idolizes Hitler, of course, and also idolizes Osama bin Laden. And he was supposedly trying to set his unit up.
No! Stop. Rewind. Idolizes Hitler, and you have to mean somebody else, right?
Osama bin Laden.
No. How?
I don't know. I don't know anything about this group. Never even heard of them.
Well, they're probably doing it just to be edgy. You know, they probably wear shirts with fucking Che Guevara and Charles Manson's fucking face on it.
Like Two-Face? I should put that in the merch store. That sounds awesome.
But yeah, that was happening today. That's what was being reported. The neo-Nazi that was part of the soldier that was doing all this stuff blew all the rest of the news away.
Well, yeah, because they're going to highlight every story like that. Don't look over here where they've been looting and tearing down statues and desecrating grave sites. But we found one white dude who loves Hitler. Listen to this story.
Yeah. I mean, it's a significant story. Now, the guy was a private, which made me wonder, okay, why is this guy still a private? Because you're going to be, if you're in the Army for more than a year, all right, you're automatically basically going to be promoted to your E4 status or specialist status, all right? I don't understand how this guy was still a private, right, if he'd been in the service for any length of time.
Ridiculous.
All right, so either he had disciplinary problems from the very get-go, all right, that kept him as a private or reduced him back to a private, or he obviously was tainted before he even came into the Army.
Well, if it was an easy on having another crack.
Well, how would a private go about setting up his entire freaking...
Well, if you know that you're going to be leaving, if you know that you're going to be on deployment somewhere, you can give people the information on deployment. The thing that I saw about it that kind of bothered me is I couldn't figure... the stories I read, none of them said what unit he was with. Right? So I couldn't tell you what kind of unit he was with. You know, if you're an MP unit and you're supposed to be doing security for an area, right, then yeah, you could probably give away a lot of shit.
Huh. I gotta step away for a second. Keep it going, guys.
Huh?
So hang on, like you're setting his unit up. What to get ambushed on deployment, or what was this going to be like? Fucking gun grabbing an exercise?
Ambushed while he was on deployment.
Why?
Well, because he hates America.
So that's what I don't get. Like, you hate America, why join the Army?
And then he said they asked him, and he said, "Well, in the evidence that they have on him, all right, they have his emails where he's basically being told you realize you might be a casualty, you might be one of the people who gets killed." He says, "Yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice for the cause."
Yeah, but still didn't have to join the Army to do this.
No, he didn't have to join the Army to do that. But I mean, that's it's curious to know what this is. Now, one thing that they don't go into is they don't say that he was a Muslim radical or anything else. I kind of wonder, right? We don't know, but that's the reality. We don't know.
Well, see, that's another thing you got to start to worry about here too. Is that, like, a lot of people are starting to get disillusioned and things like that, and there's a syndrome a lot of the Vietnam vets were going through particularly by about the 80s, which was the, what they'd done for their country and all this, what was the point, and very demoralising sort of aspect about that. I can see that, there are a few parallels that, you can draw with, a lot of things that happened during the Vietnam War, there's internal violence groups and these protests and shit like that. The only thing that they haven't come out and said now at the moment that there's a new Symbionese Liberation Army in the United States or something like that, but you may as well see Antifa or something along those lines. But fucking where was I going with that?
I don't know. Where are you going with?
Fucking no, completely lost it.
All right.
Think of something to say, so there's no dead air.
No, but it still comes back to the same thing. In America, we have different strengths and different weaknesses than Europe. And one of our strengths and one of our weaknesses, are that one of our strengths is the structure of our country. But that has been chopped away at. All right. And that's why I keep trying to push. Look, if you want to fix these things, the only fix to this anymore that's left is a convention of states. All right, but nobody wants to do it. Nobody has any kind of desire for it, and it's like, okay, well, if you want a peaceful transition, because what's coming isn't going to be peaceful, because the left will not stop. They have to be defeated. Okay, not only do they have to be defeated at the ballot box, they're going to have to get to be defeated physically now, because they've let this shit go on too long. They've been allowed to become violent, and that's what they'll do. If you defeat them at the ballot box, they'll just become violent now.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going at the beginning of this, with differentiating opinions and too many of them. You need an element of unity, at least a small majority of unity to get things fixed. Unfortunately, there's too many people. Like, you got your New Yorkers who wipe front to back, you got your Floridians who wipe back to front, you got your Texans who wipe side to side, and then you got your Californians who just use their hand and then lick it clean afterwards. So you're never going to get fucking a concise fucking statement when you got all of the differing opinions of that nature.
Well, the problem though is that that wouldn't be an issue if you all sit up there and agreed on certain common human virtues that people should be striving toward. We no longer do that, though.
I know, that's even that too is a lovely bloody sentiment where you should be saying this is the right thing to do. It makes all sense. Everyone agrees with it, but okay, how come everyone's disagreeing with it though?
It's because the prioritization isn't there. So,
anyway, well, that comes down to the argument of fucking phone towers, right? Every cunt wants proper phone reception and all this kind of stuff, but all right, well, we need to stick a phone tower right out the back of your house and fuck your view. Oh no, I don't want the phone tower there, but you want your reception, don't you?
Well, it all comes back down to personal accountability and responsibility within our nation. That's one thing that we used to have in common. We no longer have that in common.
Well, that's another thing there too, society in general. Like, you have a lot of people, especially the more supposedly professional the capacity of the employment, the worse this fucking gets. So you don't really get it from checkout chicks and fucking taxi drivers and truck drivers and shit, because we're all scumbags. But any kind who works in an office doesn't know their job to the extent that they're more predisposed to figuring out the argument or the excuse that they're going to use when they get into trouble for fucking up the job that they couldn't be competently trusted to do in the first place. So instead of learning how to do their job properly, they've already got the fuck up all organised, instead of learning how to do their job properly so they don't have to have the excuse already ready to go.
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, no. So people are more predisposed to covering their own asses as opposed to just doing their fucking job.
And it's just got worse. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. But what are you going to do? You can't argue with these people. You can't discuss these things. You can't have
an easy solution.
There's too many people who want to go, well, you got to listen to the other side. Okay, well, I've heard the other side. This is the problem with the whole debate about you got to listen to us. You got to listen to the Black Lives Matter. I've heard the Black Lives Matter. I've already listened to their nonsense. When do they have to listen to me?
MC, easiest solution on the planet. Not a fucking problem. Get me the goddamn football.
Yeah, well, there's not even going to be football this year. Personally, one of the things that is happening in America is there's no sports, and that's adding to it as well. Because sports used to, and it isn't going to matter now because they turned sports into a political arena. Sports is a great American escape area where people can sit up there and talk about sports and not have to worry about politics or anything else. They can just talk sports. And you can't do that anymore because now sports has been politicized as well.
That was fucking hilarious. That about a month or so ago, like when all the sports in America had pretty much shut down. There's all these news stories about Americans that found out about Australian football and the ARL, the NRL, and the AFL. And they're like, oh, Australian League fucking football is fucking awesome shit and all this. I'm reading all these stories and then I walk inside on the TV. It's like, and the AFL Commission have decided that they're going to cancel the rest of the season. I just looked at the phone with all the stories like,
Well, no, that's dangerous. Turning sports into a political arena. That happened in Rome. And all it did was lead to violence.
But they kind of do it anyway with the whole fucking, making out that every single sports star is like a role model, like every time one of them gets caught, it slips up, gets caught on camera swearing on TV or something like that, he's got to apologise to all the little kids out there. He's a fucking grown adult, man. Fuck. And he plays a freaking kid's sport as an adult, for crying out loud. Like, why do we have to ask him about astrophysics?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. There's a difference between that and being political.
You get what I mean, though, right?
I do and I don't, right? Because whether you like it or not, that's the way sports is. The athletes have always been role models, regardless, throughout history. You know that.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I still don't get the reason why.
Well, since it's been that way throughout history, you'd have to realize, you have to learn to accept the fact that, that's just human beings, that's human nature. Just deal with it. If something is that ubiquitous throughout history, you can pretty much say, okay, that's just an aspect of humanity.
Yeah, just guess it must be my upbringing where I always sort of associate that kind of stuff as like shit you do as being a kid. Like Lance Armstrong, for example, my attitude with Lance Armstrong is, fuck you, Jack, I've got a car license. I grew up.
But to use them as role models is something that's always happened throughout history. So, anyway, go on. What were you going to say, man? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, no. In Rome, the blue and the reds, or I think that's what it was, but everybody would have their teams in chariot races. And then in Constantinople, one day, their yelling at each other turned into yelling at the emperor. And he damn near fled in fear. This was Justinian. The only reason he didn't leave was his wife. And what he did was he put down the riot with extreme force.
Well, he convinced them that he would listen to them. He told the leaders that gather everybody together and I'll listen to you in the arena. And then he surrounded the arena with the Praetorian Guard and slaughtered everybody in the arena.
That would be the extreme force I was referring to. Yes.
Small little thing, small little detail.
Just do that to all the Melbourne fucking protesters.
Maybe one of you guys that are in the chat, you can come on in because I'm gonna have to bounce out, guys. So,
well, I think we could bow out on this one right now.
Okay.
My wife's outside. She started the barbecuer and stuff. We're having ribs tonight. Tomorrow I am going to be interviewing a gentleman who wrote a book on men's rights. He's trying to get it edited and published, and he's doing some fundraising. So he's Mad Cat over on Twitter. You might know him from Modern Medusa's channel. He was one of the people that helped with the Lovely Ladies for Men's Rights Calendar. Matter of fact, I think he was the main person with her that set that up. So that'll be 3:00 here on the West Coast, 6 on the East. Central is 5.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead. What?
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, when you push your wife down the stairs to get rid of the unwanted baby and you accidentally break her neck in the process and all that, kill her too, is it still domestic violence if it's an accident?
No, it's just murder. No. But good night, everybody. And I don't know. Maybe sanity will come back to the country. Thank you, Farty, for hosting on StreamYards for us today. And you can wrap it up.
All right.
Boobies.